Good morning, everybody. It's the Meet Me in the Middle podcast. I'm Jackson, and I'm stressed, and my hair's grown out too long. How are you, Justin?
I'm okay. I could piggyback on the stress, and I've intentionally been growing my hair out, so maybe it's not a negative. It's negative of a thing, I guess.
I had a haircut scheduled.
I know that you only let your hair go so much, and then next thing I know, it's like down to just the withers.
Right. So this week was crazy. Was very, very busy, and it's not ending anytime soon. The weekend is super busy. Next week is super busy. Like it never ends. And I had a haircut scheduled because Melissa and I went out of town for a couple days.
Are you still getting your haircut scheduled, or are you still getting your haircut down in Redondo and all that?
No. I got a guy in Whittier now. But I had a haircut scheduled, and it was like kind of a weird time that I wouldn't normally go. Like normally it's either like 1 or 2 p.m. or like 9 or 10 in the morning. And this was 12:15 that I was supposed to be there. Like a really, really exact middle of the day. Like in hindsight, I should have thought of it. Like that's a really bad idea. That's like right when I'm like getting into the swing of like the meat of the day. People are calling me. Like it's a busy time of day. And I took a call, I don't know, 11:50. And this call was like, oh, it's going to be like, just take a couple minutes. And I started talking to this lady. And then 46 minutes went by. And at 12:36, I'm like, I was supposed to be at my haircut. And I like jet over there.
You missed your tea time, man.
He was like, dude, I got someone in 10 minutes. Like, we got to reschedule. I was like, well, what do you got to? Because we were leaving at 5 a.m. the next day on Wednesday. And I wasn't going to be back until this morning or late last night. He's like, I don't have anything today. What about tomorrow? I'm like, I'm out of town. It's like, what about Friday? It's like 9:30 on Friday. I have my Christmas party at 11 a.m. today in Long Beach. And I'm going to get my haircut at 9:30. And then I have to get a suit on and get suited and booted. Not going to take a shower. Sorry.
You're going to have to Superman in a telephone booth this, man.
Dude, wild.
Hey, you know what? It'll be over and we'll be on to next week soon.
Next week soon. It's just as bad. What do you got? You had some cool ideas that
Yeah. I mean, I kind of been going back and forth. I mean, I don't think we had like a generic thing so much. I was kind of going to just toss some stuff around, I guess. My original thought was like, and a lot of these, I want to say, I don't know what the word is. Maybe hot pocket or stereotypical parts of like where we live. I don't know if you've experienced the same thing, but I know that when I travel and as soon as I pull out, like if I'm at a bar or I pull out my ID or whatever else and like it just reads California.
Yeah.
Depending on where you are, you just kind of get this like, oh, California, huh? It's like, what's this?
It's funny that you say that because my experience has been very different than that. My experience has been California. Like people they want to know, why are you here?
Yeah, like, I don't know. I mean, I had an issue with, we went to Chicago and we were at a bar and all that kind of stuff. And like, we showed it and it was like a negative connotation. It was like, oh, California. It's like, I'm in Chicago. How much different are we talking? Like big ass blue city to big ass, like, what are we talking? What's the difference, And then depending where you go, right? Like one of the more interesting ones was I went to Toronto, hung out in Toronto. And then when you're in Toronto, you're pretty close to Niagara. But all the good Niagara stuff is on the New York side. So we literally like flew to Toronto and then had a rental car and we were driving back into the US. And the Border Patrol guy was like, well, you're from, what's happening right now? And I was like, we're visiting in Toronto and all the good shit is on the New York side. So we like had to come back over and saw that. But it was just like a roundabout thing of like, he was trying to make it work out as to how are we from California, but we flew into Toronto and now we're driving into New York. And it was just like a whole weird
that
thing.
throws up some red flags.
You would think, right? And so, I mean, it's, and I've been to, again, New Orleans and Philadelphia and DC and, Seattle and all those kinds of places. It's just, I don't know, every now and then, and then you look up, if you were to like, I don't know if you did, but I Googled like top 10 biggest stereotypes of Californians or something.
Okay.
And it's like, oh, everybody surfs. And it's like, no, we don't. I've never surfed a day in my life. And like, especially in the South Bay, there's so much mercury in our water and it's really not really not that nice and everything. I was like, you know, you can't even. There's sometimes where you're on the water and I can't even see my feet. I'm like, well, I don't even know what's down there. I'm not. I don't. I mean, I sure I've been to the beach and stuff, but like we don't all surf, really.
Sure.
I guess. I don't know. I think what do you think so much about being a California from here?
So I will tell you that this year, and I guess let's say the last 2 years, I have seen more of California than I think I had ever seen.
Well, you drive around a lot, yeah.
And yeah. And when my daughter was born, we took a road trip and just kind of just so happened we hit like all the state capitals on the way to see my parents in Wyoming. Right. And so rather than taking like the most direct way, like the 15 and it hits,
Well, the boring way.
yeah, like it hits Vegas, the corner of Arizona, you get
Yeah.
into Utah, like going up that, like the direct, we went up north to see my aunt in Livermore, and then we drove across into Sacramento, and then we drove across into Carson City and go across Nevada. Like we went up and then across rather than going, on a direct route. And I had never really been to Sacramento, seeing Rockland, seeing like more, because I had been to Livermore, I'd been to my aunt's house when I was little, but I hadn't really been there as an adult. And, I was really into craft beer at that time. And so we were hitting breweries up in Northern California that I had like heard about that I'd never seen before. That was pretty cool. And seeing Sacramento was nice. But the last 2 years going up north with my wife, and all of our kids, like going to Yosemite and taking detours and then being up in Paso and up in Salinas and Lockwood. And we went the long way yesterday home down to Los Olivos. We went to Solvang yesterday. Like I've seen a lot of the central California, like through the valley. And I hadn't been on the coast on the 101 side in quite a while.
Arguably, like, the best side.
Right. So when we were in Wyoming, we got the sticker on the water bottle that said Wyoming isn't real. Because there's a company like an apparel, like a graphic design company that's called Wyoming Isn't Real. And like their Instagram, shout out, Wyoming Isn't Real. It's these like beautiful vistas and these pictures of Wyoming, and it's like, this isn't real. Like this can't be real. It's too beautiful. And we were driving yesterday and we were looking at these rolling green hills and these little wispy trees and cows, and it looked like a screensaver. Well, my wife says to me, California's not real. And I mean, like when you really think about that, you can drive for 12 hours more, 14 hours, and still be in the same state. That's wild when you really think about it.
Not only that, but 12 hours and have really great things to see too. Like, again, I've been to a lot of places, and I'm sure I've seen picturesque things of Montana and Utah,
Yeah.
Idaho, right? But there are certain parts of those states where it's not so super like when you're at below zero and freezing, like all those kinds of things. But when it comes to California, I mean, if you go all the way up to the Redwoods to Big Sur, you're in a
Yeah.
totally different world. You can
Yeah.
go to Shasta and see like all that kind of, and then you have Yosemite. We have two different areas where we grow wine. You go to Napa Valley or right up to Solvang and Santa Barbara and Santa Maria and Paso Robles and all those
Oh,
places.
we have more
Rolling
than
hills.
two. You think about Temecula, you think about
Oh, down there too. Yeah, exactly.
Paso,
Yeah.
Napa, and Sonoma.
I mean, it's wild that, like, let's say we were surfers, right? If you pick the right time of year, you
Mhm.
could go surf, and then 2.5 hours later, you could be snowboarding in
So
big.
that's the California trifecta. Is you surf in the morning, you go snowboarding in the day, and you have a glass of wine in the desert in
Oh,
the same day.
sure.
Surf, snow, and sand
Yeah.
in the same day. Like
That's also only like 5 to 6 hours of travel. That's not even.
if that,
Yeah.
honestly, if that, because from here, 40 minutes to the beach, like the closest beach probably is like 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
2 hours to Big Bear, and then like an hour and a half. Like I really do think you could do it in 4 hours. Like that.
Oh, yeah.
If
If like middle of the day drive time, of course, freeways and stuff. Oh yeah, totally, it's
So
completely possible.
here's the thing. Like you're saying, oh, Montana and Utah, like they have these beautiful vistas, and like there's a trade-off to everything that we do. So Wyoming is beautiful. Montana is better, but Wyoming has better weather than Montana. Wyoming has worse weather than Colorado. Like the farther north you get, the more just epic and beautiful it gets, but the weather gets like exponentially worse, right? California has outrageously beautiful like views and things to see, but you're in a like blueberry blue state, you know?
Well, in those areas you are, yeah.
But in general, I'm
Oh yeah,
saying. So
majorly speaking, yeah.
for someone that's like, I want temperate weather and beautiful things to see, and you're like, oh, California. If you're not a liberal, if you're not like, if you have more far right conservative, not to, I don't want to say far right. If you have less liberal views and it bothers you the way the direction that California's going, it doesn't really matter how beautiful it is. You're gonna
You could be
try to
living,
find your pocket and
you
you're
could be
gonna stay
living
there.
really.
So that one thing that we noticed yesterday that we talked about this, like we've been to Montana and Utah and Wyoming, like we've been to these quaint small towns, not California, and they're beautiful and they have a small town feel and everybody knows each other, but the politics are very different
Oh,
than
whoa,
California.
no shit.
But no, but hear me out. So when we were driving through these beautiful parts of California yesterday, we noticed something is that these small towns are still affluent to a point, and I really want to dive deeper into this and research this, but this was just like a observation, a hunch that we got. There are more highly educated people living in small towns, living that slower life, but the political leanings are not the way that they are small town in other parts of the country that I've been to. I've been to places like Los Olivos. I've been to places like Paso and these beautiful like Solvang, places like this that are just bleed red. That there's Trump signs everywhere. I think yesterday I came to this conclusion that there are people that are fiscally conservative that may be that would call themselves Republican, but they're not MAGA, and
Of course
they
not.
they're not to that extreme. It's like, oh no, I'm conservative. Like I have conservative views, and I'm not for this like wasteful government spending. Like there is this like section of people
You mean
that I was
you mean a Republican?
right.
That's what the general sense used to be, you know?
This is the reason why I'm bringing this up is because this is kind of what we are aiming a little bit to talk about is that there are people that are still kind of classic
Yeah,
Republicans and
sure.
classic Democrats,
I would
and
say there's an
they
age difference
live
to that.
together. These small towns, like you don't really talk about your politics in these small towns, and
You shouldn't.
right, and
I am curious though, of these things you saw, would you not agree that there's also an age correlation though? Like my mom's age, our parents' age. Those are your still stereotypical Republicans and Democrats, where as you get younger, you start to see those fractions and those splinters of farther. I don't think that it's the older generation so much, because they're still the ones that practice some of the ways of we don't talk about this
you're
stuff.
saying that the older generation are not the crazy MAGA.
They're more no. I'm saying they're more traditional Democrat and Republic, the older. I don't know.
I don't know, man. I don't know. The most insane MAGA people that I've ever come across in my face to face have been that older generation.
I also think it's flipped on the other side too. I think the most crazy progressives are the youngest ones you can possibly find.
Yeah, they're inexperienced.
Yeah. And I think the MAGA ones are just, oh my God, what's the word? I don't know if it's undereducated or if it's like
No, that's you hit the nail on the head.
it's like one or
That's
the other, right?
generally what it is.
I think
That's
the younger
generally what it is.
yeah, but it's crazy that the far outs of them are literally, it's like a generational gap of like 40 years where you have the MAGA people that are 60 and 70 and over, and then you have this young population
Yeah.
that's so far to the, spectrum of the
So
other end.
they're to the in the inverse of that. Some of the more conservative Republican young people that I've met live in these small towns, and they are the children of ranch owners or like vineyard owners or that of small business people. And I think that there is something to be said that there is a generation of people, even in California, that are growing up with entrepreneurial parents or families that are social justice. Like they want equality and equity, and like they want people to be happy and healthy, but they also do believe in less taxation or different styles of government spending and things like that. And as much as there are wild young liberals, and we see them more, I think, because we are in a bigger city.
Well, and we're in a massively blue, like we're gonna see all of them. The
Right,
demographic
right,
of
right.
California, we're gonna see. We're gonna
But I'm talking specifically about California. I've come across people in the Central Valley, in Fresno, Modesto, like
which
that belt.
notoriously, I would say would be like if I had to guess, and like I would assume they'd be more red. Anything in the Central Valley is usually red,
There I
aside
see
from the universities, of course.
the older people, but even at the universities, because even at Fresno State, can't remember the name of it now,
I
but
mean, and let's just say hypothetically, someone's listening or watching that's not from California, right? When we talk Central Valley, it's like farmland and nothing like that's where the
yeah,
growth of everything we make, and so I mean, it's still really small families, single families, farmland and stuff, and it's not
yeah.
until you get to the water, till you get to the ocean, where we are, where it's L.A., it's San Diego, it's San Francisco, where stuff drastically changes.
So this
The area that we're talking about is extremely flat. It's all farmland, basically. I mean, you
yeah.
have those pockets of cities, but even the cities, like, don't mention Stockton, but I mean, like, certain stuff like that. It's a completely different. That's the crazy thing about California, right? Is that you could be in the most progressive, forward-thinking like city in the nation, drive 2 hours east, and you're in a completely different part of the state and
You
everything.
could break California into 3 or 4 different states.
At least two for sure.
I mean, I'm thinking like Santa Barbara and below would be one, and then
Sure.
up to about San Francisco,
San Jose probably a little
San
bit lower.
Jose,
Yeah.
and then everything above that. And you could like break it into three: the top, the middle, and the bottom.
Even San Diego and below, there's
But
kind of
I would almost break the central part
right
of
now all the whole east,
west and east.
all the way to
Yeah,
mountains, all the way to the mountains.
that's what I'm saying. So like, I think you could have 4 states,
Oh, you
and
mean
then
the ones that are blue now?
the what?
The ones that are blue now because they redistrict everything?
Like the Beatles say, bro, let it be.
That's the stupidest shit I've ever heard of. Stupidest shit. Hey, did you hear that Indiana told Trump to go fuck himself with his map?
Oh, really?
Yeah, he tried to redistrict Indiana. They said no. And we have more Democrats that are leading. I can't wait for you to eat your words where you think that everything was going to shit and the Democrats were losing and our voting doesn't mean anything when the Democrats are winning kind of across the board right now. We got it on tape, man.
Sure.
Where I told you that, dude, people can vote and change anytime they want. You're like, oh, well, it's going. Okay.
What it's going what?
What do you mean?
We're going to hell in a handbasket either way.
But you're always a negative Nancy, dude. Again, Democrats are starting to come back, which is to me, I think is a good thing. If the Republicans came in and it was shit, vote the other way, and
Yeah.
they are.
Yeah. No, I'm curious to see where all this is going.
And
that there
you were talking about people of Central Valley and all that.
well, so this is the an interesting just experience that I've had recently going through California
Sure.
and see there are so many different places. And my wife and I yesterday had this conversation about the kids that grow up in Paso and the Atascadero and Templeton, like these areas that are just like predominantly vineyards, and
Yeah.
they grow up learning wine culture, whether it's cultivation or they learn about grapes and they learn about all the techniques and all that stuff. And it's just kind of like a shared general knowledge. Just people just know about that stuff. We were talking about what is in LA, what are we like, what do the kids just grow up kind of just like inherently understanding or like knowing about that they just kind of just by osmosis kind of know about. And
Like environmentally speaking, like what surrounds you and what.
yeah, and I think what we came up with for the most part, obviously like this doesn't apply to everybody, but the entertainment business is like LA is Hollywood. Like people just know about TV shows get filmed here. There's actors everywhere. Like there's always jokes about like every waiter in LA is a struggling actor or someone starting out. And that's kind of what we came up with is like that's probably pretty true. I mean, like across like the Central Valley, there's probably a lot of kids that just know about farming. And in one of the schools that we were at yesterday, it's like, oh, he writes with his right hand, but he shoots with his left hand. And we're talking about like an elementary school kid,
Okay.
and that you just don't hear that. And You don't hear about like, oh yeah, he writes with his right hand, but he shoots with his left hand. It's like that's just not a thing. You know, maybe you might hear about like just like sports related, like, oh yeah, he writes with his left hand, but he golfs right-handed. You know, like that, like there are probably are similar kind of situations. It just was just funny to hear. That's just a funny thing to hear. And what do you think about that? If you had to say, what is LA like growing up in LA, you just inherently know about what? Like, would you agree that it's entertainment, or do you think it's
Well,
something
you know
different?
what? Okay, look, the
Because
sad
I don't fully agree with the entertainment. I think that that is a very good idea of something, but I'm open. What I just want to know
I mean,
what you.
the sad part is that unfortunately, I think it used to be entertainment. Hollywood's been struggling for a while now, so I actually don't think it's really going to be that anymore. Because I think if you look at a lot of the actors now that are even here, they have to fly out to film. I mean, you know what? Unfortunately, a lot of the stereotypes that people think are California really aren't anymore. And
Okay,
I went to the LA Auto Show. That used to be, dude. It used to take you an entire day
I remember.
to go to the auto show
I
because
remember.
the entire convention center, you stopped at the pantry and ate halfway through the day, went back and did everything. I went there, dude, 2 hours, 3 hours.
Really?
You know why? BMW wasn't there, Audi wasn't there, Mercedes wasn't there. You know, we have
Really?
all these, they just weren't there. Yeah. And you know what? COVID killed all this stuff too. As soon as COVID happened, you're not congregating thousands of people in the convention center. And as soon as we got out of that, it never recovered, you know?
Mhm.
And then car manufacturers in general, where you talk about emissions and how cars are so expensive now, like the average car, the average
Yeah,
car is like 40
yeah,
grand, which is stupid.
yeah.
So what are they advertising? Like it's just and it used to be a whole thing, you know, you would go and everybody would go. I don't know. And car culture in California, I mean, they keep coming after emissions and eventually California is going to kill the car industry because they keep doing this crap, you know, and it's unfortunate because there's so many things in car culture that started here. That I think that would have been synonymous with California a long time ago would have been car culture. You have Carroll Shelby that built something that went over and beat Ferrari in Le Mans. I mean,
Mhm.
Willow Springs is still here. You can still go race if you
I
want.
just drove by.
But you know what? Gardena used to have a racetrack, gone. Paris has a racetrack out there.
Mhm.
It's under threat all the time because they built track cones across the street. The racetrack was there first.
Yeah,
Irwindale, gone.
yeah.
California Speedway, gone. They're eliminating car culture in California. And it's all emissions and because we don't have enough housing, to which they're not going to be able to build affordable housing anyway. So I
Right.
mean, it's just like the things that we have in California are they're getting ripped apart, honestly, and it's really sad. Like I see certain things, and it's really unfortunate, you know. And we're prioritizing different crap, you know. I would hate to bring up high speed rail again, but I saw something posted yesterday that just Anaheim to LA, just Anaheim to Union Station, it's like $2.6 billion.
Yeah,
That's insane. And
yeah.
we don't you try and tell me we need it. We don't need that crap. And you know that I know if you drive in the to the desert like towards Vegas,
Yeah,
there's that big solar farm out there.
yeah,
You know that shit's closing next year?
yep. I just watched an explainer video on it. Yeah,
It cost $2.2 billion, Jackson,
yeah,
for a whole lot of energy that did jack all. I mean, the whole reason it's going under is because it didn't make back the entire investment or the future energy savings that they said it would. I just saw another one today that a huge Anheuser-Busch Budweiser up north is closing next year too, along with how we've lost two refineries.
mhm,
Toyota's gone. I mean, how much industry do we have to lose, you know, while also maintaining an $18 billion deficit? I mean, we're just getting this it used to be, and I still like would like to think that it is one of the best states in the nation by far. If you talk about we have the fourth highest GDP in the world, why are we failing across the board in all these areas that we used to be massively succeeding in? And
mhm,
I'm sorry, but who's managing this? Who's been managing the state? And we always talk about how massively what it is. Fucking blue.
mhm,
And I'm like, and you know, I'm not saying that the Republicans would do it better, but I'm saying if you're gonna do it, you need to do it better. You cannot say that any of these industries we've had are doing better. They're not, they're leaving, wholeheartedly leaving or just shutting down. That Anheuser-Busch, that Budweiser building, almost 500 employees. You know what? Try and tell me that that's a good thing, that that's what's happening, you know? I mean, it's really unfortunate, you know, and I expect better because we can be, and we have been, you know, that's the hard thing. And it's just, it comes down to me that it's misappropriation of a shit ton of money, by the way. No one gets taxed as much as we do. So you have a slush fund of money You're just not putting it in places that's keeping industry and keeping stuff here. You know, Atlanta has their own studios now. There's a bunch of people filming overseas and in Australia because it's just cheaper to film. Sure, the actors make enough money to stay here, but we don't film here anymore. And that used to be one of the biggest draws of LA and California was Hollywood. You drive by there now and it's we got stuff there, but we don't film there anymore. And it's like, you know what? I just it's unfortunate, you know. I would also say that, you know, there's only two areas really in the world that grow wine, and that's here and you know the Mediterranean, and it's because we have the weather that we do. So I think that that's a big thing. But LA, I mean, I don't know. You know what's weird? I don't know. I've had this thought every now and then that if you live in such a multicultural place where you have so many different people and so many different things, can you really lock on to one? I feel like sometimes if you live in a big city, sometimes you lose. You lose culture. You lose that like identifier of because there's just so many different things that you don't have that one thing to kind of connect to. So I think like being in LA sometimes is an absence of identifiers and an absence of culture because we have so much going on. And then technology always takes away from culture. So it's like we end up kind of, you know, I think of like I get fired up by the New Zealand All Blacks,
Uh-huh.
the rugby team, because that spirit that they have and that cultural connection that they have, and I don't have any of that. You know, I mean, I'm an American. I love being, you know, here and I would fight for it if it asked me to and all that kind of stuff. I love our rights and just all the opportunity and all the stuff that we have, sure. But when it comes to having that deep, like spiritual root of something or something that says like, I'm from here, we don't really have that, you know, it's very materialistic here and everything. So I don't know.
Yeah.
The identifiers for us, you know, and then I think it's different depending on where you are in California, right? If you're in
Yeah.
LA, it's one thing. If you go up the coast, it's another thing. So like from LA, you know, even us, we're kind of from a suburb of LA, not LA in general. I mean, we are very
Yeah.
close, but you know, I think there's a drastic difference between living in downtown and then living where we are. And you know, I don't know what it used to be, man. It's kind of hard to. What do you have any?
So I can align with what you're saying. We used to be more about car culture. It used to be Hollywood, and you know, like the no nowhere else in the world did we have the level of notoriety. You know, like for very hyper specific things. And I think that part of the reason why we are such a melting pot, even more so now, we've always been kind of a melting pot, but the I mean, like let's just use Hermosa Beach, Hermosa, Manhattan as an example. When I was growing up there, the people that lived there grew up there. They lived there. They were like families. They'd always lived in the South Bay. It was very rare when you met someone that was like not from there that lived there. And now it's completely the opposite. I remember growing up in Redondo and Hermosa and Manhattan, when someone would say, "Oh, where are you from?" And I'd say, "Right here." "You're from here? Wow."
Yeah.
I go, "What do you mean, wow? Nobody like grew up here. I did,
Yeah.
you know." And that I think I've told you before, that became a huge chasm between like my neighbors. You know, like my parents bought the house in Redondo 27 years ago, and they barely paid anything for it, really. I mean, it was a lot then, obviously, but in hindsight, like that $300,000 house that my parents bought versus the $2.7 million house up the street that sold, and now that house is probably worth 3.5. There's a house on Paulina that sold for 5.2, something insane like that. You know, just like 2.5 blocks away,
Yeah.
and I have nothing in common with that. He's a brain surgeon. He's got
Sure.
this big ass house. He throws like $10,000 birthday parties for his like 4-year-old. I have nothing in common with the guy. I wish that I could have something in common. But most of the neighbors that have like gotten old enough, the kids are out of the house and they end up selling and they move to Palm Desert, or they move to, they downsize and they like settle, they retire. And then a new family comes in and they pay $2 million for the house. You know, like that is what I've seen happen, is that Hermosa is and Manhattan are like magnified examples of that. There, look at the HVAC guy that lived on the Walk Street that we
You're gonna bring him up. He actually died 3 months ago.
okay. I'm sure he did. He was old as shit, right?
Yeah, he was.
But think about that $17,000 house that he bought.
Oh no, yeah. He is the example of he bought that Walk Street house in Manhattan
Yeah,
60 years ago,
yeah,
and
for a song, right? And
and
his
the dirt,
neighbors.
it's actually an inconvenience. The house is still on it because anybody
That's
that
my
would
house too.
take it down.
That's my house too. The house would probably be worth 50 grand more if the house if the house wasn't on
It's
it.
possible. It's possible, yeah, because that would
You
have
know,
been 30 grand a demo. We wouldn't have to do.
right?
Yeah.
So, but I knew tons of people that their parents or their grandparents bought these houses in Hermosa, Redondo, Manhattan, Hermosa years and years and years ago. Bought it in the 60s or the 70s. And there is no way that they could live in the beach cities now. They
Uh,
worked and they retired and they're on a fixed income. Their property tax is next to nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
And that's wild to me. They've torn down all these duplexes and they're building, it's like big, huge single family homes, or they're tearing down these little tiny homes and building four. So the problem with we do have a housing problem across California, but
Well,
we're
that's because we have too many.
condensing.
We have
We're
too many people
condensing.
here.
Sure. But that,
California is the biggest state aside from Texas, but we
yeah.
all want to live in the same fucking place. Spread the hell out a little bit, That's the biggest.
Well,
Everyone wants to live in LA or has to live in LA, and it's like you don't have to though. And it just
so I was talking to my wife about this yesterday. So we were at a coffee shop in Paso or in Templeton, and we got in the car and I said, it's so funny. Like 10 years ago, when I would go visit my parents in Wyoming, I'd look at this little quaint small town that they lived in and say, man, I could never live here. I could never live in a small town like this. And now 10 years later, I'm going, man, I would love to live in a small town like I get it now. And
Right.
she pointed out that like, yeah, but 10 years ago, like you're still, in your late 20s, like you're still trying to find your people. And once you find those people, once you like get married and have some kids and like you're contained now, and now you could kind of move that group anywhere because you are your people. It made a lot of sense. It's like, oh man, like I would like a much like slower pace of life. I would like that.
Now you would, yeah,
Now I would.
yeah.
And
Yeah. Go ahead.
but I think that people are trying to find their people when they come to LA. They're trying to find something. They think they're expecting. I mean, like so many movies that like, this bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, guy or girl like getting off the bus in LA, like I'm going to be a star in Hollywood, and then they have this harsh reality. People romanticize LA. They romanticize like everything, especially people that live in super, super small towns. Like I told you at the beginning of this, like, you show your ID and someone's like, oh, LA. I've had that opposite experience where I show people my ID and they're like, oh my gosh, you're from LA. Why are you here? Like they're so interested. And it's just mostly in like smaller,
Yeah, sure.
Montana and
The
Utah
other
stuff.
side of the spectrum, yeah.
To them, they're like, oh, you're the president, like they don't.
You've been to the moon?
Yeah, exactly. And I say, yeah, like they're like, oh, like man, I've never been to LA. Or I had people in Miami say, man, I could never live in California. I could never live in California. Oh, politics, this and this and that. I said, have you been to California? Well, no. I said, shut the fuck up then.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's not again. I mean, I will also say this that the politics in California, we're the most Western state, so it's always been progressive.
Yeah.
It has gotten worse. We did have Arnold as a governor, who was a Republican, so we did have certain things, and we've just continued and continued and continued to vote more progressive
Sure.
and more social and more taxed, and it's gotten to the point where it's too much, and you keep devoting the money into certain things, and now you're starting to alienate half the state, and it's
Well,
the state that produces everything.
I
And
think that there's a lot of money.
California used to be free everything. You come here,
Yeah.
you can be a hippie at the beach, you
Yeah.
can do like whatever you want to do. And then now people worry about schools, they worry about school counselors not even talking to their parents about
Yeah.
what the kid's going through, which is
Yep.
insane. And like all these, again, these super progressive things. And it's like, sure, if you're an adult, you'd probably be fine. But if you have a family to raise and like
Yeah.
you have to worry about all these little intricacies that are not the same. You and I both went to school here, dude. That
Yeah.
shit that's happening now has never happened before. And imagine, okay, you've like loosely known my dad. He didn't give two shits about what was going on in school. But imagine if he had to deal with the bull. Oh my God, he would flip stuff over. He would not like. I just the old school parents, or certain things like that. I mean, I
Sure.
even nowadays, teachers get in trouble if they need to discipline a person and a kid in class, and my parents would be like, "What the fuck did you do?"
Yeah.
And like, it had nothing to do with the fact that these people, the dean of the school or whatever else, whose job it is to maintain everything, had to do something. Well, you should have told me first. It's like there's a trade-off when you put your kid into school. These people are supposed to manage your kid
Yeah.
and grow them up and everything. Like my mom, sometimes we never even know what happened at the end of the day until we told her about it. And sometimes we didn't have to tell her about it. But now the parents, teachers are expected to like send an after action report after every single day of school to tell you like what happened. It's
So
not, it's
I
the over regulation of like
yeah.
security cameras and this massive amounts of accountability for things that you don't like that could be happening. It's kind of like pathetically anxious about everything that could happen. It's like you lived through all this shit and it's not that bad. I think we
Yeah.
freaked out about all this stuff and it's not the same that it used to be. And you know what's funny is that I went to Phoenix with my mom. We went to the NASCAR race and we happened to park next to these older people. I want to say they were in probably their 70s. And we were talking to him like, "Oh, where are you from?" And he's like, "Oh, West Covina." And like, "Oh shit, I'm from LA." And we're both in Phoenix.
Yeah.
We kind of started talking. He was like, "Yeah, I think he was like a fire marshal. He worked for the fire department for a long time." And he's like, "Yeah, dude." He's like, I had to like get out of LA. And he's like, "I'm thinking about moving all in general." And I'm like, your age, man, I don't blame you. Because if I was your age, seeing what California used to be 40, 50 years ago and what it is now, especially the South Bay, I'm like, I bet it's not even recognizable to you. And I was telling him a lot, and he goes, and by the end of our conversation with what I was talking to him about, he was like, "You know what? It's actually really nice to hear that someone of like your age is as centerlined as you are with these things and as independent as you are." He's like, because I thought for sure that younger generation was just going to be screwed. Like so far that, and he's like, and he's like, "I'm not even super conservative, man." He goes, "Back in the day, California was a lot more centerline than what it is. And now it's
Sure.
not anymore." And he's like, it's not the same place. My mom said the same thing when she left. She was like, it got to the point where I didn't know my neighbors. My block she's like, I lived on our block for 30 years and it's not the same anymore. She's like, there's too many people. She's like, I'm tired of the helicopter flying over our house every night. She's like, that's not what the area used to be. It's, so you get a lot of these people that have lived in California longer than anybody that say it's not even the same state anymore, and not for good reasons, but for other ones.
I had the same thing with my parents moved to Wyoming 2012. They bought the house in 2008. But my dad has only been back to California once.
Yeah, I was gonna say he doesn't. Uh,
Once in 13 years. Um, he said, "There's nothing in California for me." He goes, "The only thing that's there is you and your kids." And he goes, "And you guys come to me."
I was gonna say, yeah, you guys go there.
And I went, yeah, like it used to bother me. It did, like when they first moved, like, "Oh, like why don't you come? I'm not coming back to California."
Yeah, but now that you like the small city
I get
thing,
it now.
you might
But
sympathize.
one of the things about Sheridan where they live, and everybody feels this way. It's a great place to grow up. It's a horrible place to work, and it's a great place to retire.
So your midlife, you need to find somewhere else to go.
LA or like California. You know what I mean? So
Where the money is, where the opportunity
I
is.
get it that people want I know born in Iowa, fantastic. When you go to school, you go off to college, you get your degree, you move to California and you work for a big company, you like start your family, and then when you're ready to retire, you get the fuck out of California. Because like you're saying, this 77-year-old person, California, like when you're dealing with raising property taxes to fund public programs, I understand where someone that doesn't have any kids that are in school is going, I don't want to pay more taxes to fund these schools that my kids don't go to. I don't want to pay more tax for programs and things that aren't going to benefit me. It's like I get it, these public assistance and social programs. Like I get that they're important, but like it's not. I'm already on a budget. I don't want to pay more. I get it. Move out of state to a much better situation. You can buy more house. You can get more land. You can, your dollar goes farther. I get it. I totally get it. And we are that interim. There's so many places around the country that are great to grow up. They're horrible to work, and they're great to retire. And we fill that gap. California. just fills that gap. But there's plenty of places in California that aren't great to work. There's plenty of places in Central California, and what there's nowhere around. It's beautiful, but there's no industry. There's no like there are no careers. There's jobs. You work at the Dollar Tree, you work at fast food. Like you own a business, you start a business, and that's how it is in Wyoming. You either bring your work to Wyoming, or you work for someone on a menial job. There is no middle class.
Yeah.
There's the working class, and there's the people that own the businesses. That's it.
Yeah.
And I think that there are some parts of California that feel a lot like that. That's like that's why people live there. But again, LA, everybody lives in Southern California. Everybody wants to live in Southern California. And then they realize how spread out we are and how it takes 2 hours to get from one end of LA to the other. And everybody kind of clusters together. And then we don't see each other. I mean, this is a much bigger conversation, but
yeah,
California is the dream for a lot of people. And then when you get here, you go, it either definitely works or it doesn't.
Yeah. Well, it's very cutthroat being here, and
we have a different perspective growing up here, though. We really do. You know that.
Well, yeah, because we saw it before it got out of hand.
We also don't have
my mom bought the house for $98,000.
Yeah. We're also not starting from square one. We didn't move here and like have to figure out how to thrive.
Yeah.
We're
also getting priced out of the place we live now too.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite bubble comics, is like the father and son on 8th Street in Manhattan. And it says,
you'll never be able to,
you'll never be able to live where you grew up, and
you know what? People from here don't get it. Cause again, like when my mom bought in the 80s, she bought it for $98,000. And she even told me, she was like, you know what, and we live, for perspective, right? I live 20 minutes from the water,
Yeah.
But nowadays that 20-minute drive is drastically different, where all of a sudden, like you come over, like you can pass one block and then you're in Hermosa, Manhattan, 2- and 3-story houses, $10 million. And where I live, there's none of that stuff.
Right.
But back then, my mom was like, you know what? Everything everywhere in the South Bay was $100,000. She's like, I could have bought in Redondo, I could have bought in Torrance, but she was like, back then, only hippies and bikers lived at the beach.
So that's why my dad lived in Hermosa.
The beach cities were not the beach cities. And she's like, it exploded in like a decade. She's like, if I would have known that's what it would have, she's like, I would have bought there. She's like, but back then you didn't live at the beach unless you were a hippie.
Do you know what the big thing was? Because when we would go on vacation,
who'd have thought beachfront ocean view property would have been probable?
There are plenty of that have oceanfront kind of property that, again, it's kind of similar to the South Bay, like didn't blow up until the last like 20 years or so. But one of the big things is I saw it. I grew up in Hermosa. I saw it. No one knew where Hermosa was. No, and people knew about Redondo Beach from like the Beach Boys from, Surfing USA, but they didn't really know where Redondo was. And then the AVP, the professional volleyball tournament.
Oh yeah.
Started
Manhattan usually, right?
In Manhattan in Hermosa. And suddenly people were coming in for the volleyball tour and they're going,
oh, it's pretty nice here.
This is nice. This is like small town feel.
Yeah.
It's not.
No, you can drive through Hermosa in 10 minutes. It's like
it's 1 square mile.
Yeah.
It's a very tiny place. But that's when I saw it, at least. And then when they built the promenade in Hermosa on Pier Avenue, I remember I have like vivid memories of like riding my longboard, my skateboard around the horseshoe. There used to be an island with like palm trees in it. All the shops, you could just park diagonal right in front of them. You could literally drive up to the Strand. There was a curb and the road, and the Strand started right there. And that when they put the promenade there, then all the big bars, Hennessy's took over 3 units, and all the bars took over 4 small mom and pop businesses are now 1 stupid bar. And there's a bar every 10 feet, and it's drinking culture, and everything changed. And I remember my dad, like in the 90s, my dad was like, fuck this place. Like,
turning into
this isn't the Hermosa that I grew up in. It was dingy, and it was like, there was bikers and meth, and it was like just surfers and hippies. It was dingy. Yeah. That Hermosa doesn't exist anymore. People look at the old pictures of Hermosa and they're like, "Oh wow, this is only 50 years ago." People look at pictures of old Hermosa and it's like they're looking at the Old West from the 1800s. That's what it looked like. Yeah. The reason why the Hermosa Beach like seal and all the brown wood street signs that have all been replaced now, it was in like a western town. The park that I went to just up the street from my house in Hermosa had big covered wagon, things to play on. It was like Pilgrim Town,
Well,
you
back
know?
then they had the train track went through there. The
Yes,
freight train
exactly.
through there, yeah.
You know, the red car, the street cars went through there. Yeah, it's just different. You know, everybody wants to come to LA. We're on the map like we never have been before. No one wanted to live in PV. I have family friends that their families owned huge lots of land in Palos Verdes for
Oh,
farming.
it used to just be a hill.
Yeah. And they sold it off in the, these 30s and 40s type of thing. Like, no one wants to live here. And now look at it. It's prime real estate. It's a crazy place.
Yeah. I mean, even for me, like my mom, she moved up to Oregon. She says there's 3,500 people in her town. I mean, I mean, 15 minutes she's in Newport, which, they have all the big stuff. 55 an hour the other way, and there's Corvallis, where Oregon State University is. So, I
Yeah.
mean, kind of in the thoroughfare, but in her daily life in the town is like 3,500 people. And I go up there and it's a nice reset. It's just quiet, it's fresh. There's you're surrounded by trees. But at this stage in my life, at 34, I need to be in LA making money. Like I have to be here making money. And
Sure.
you brought up that it was more like find your people. I think it's more financial. My opinion would be financial reasons. For me, like could I move to Oregon? Yeah. What the hell am I going to do over there? And I'm not going to be making six figures up there, and in some of these areas doing what I do. Right now I'm building houses in the beach cities that we're talking about.
Right.
There's not that bubble is not anywhere else really
Right.
other than here. And I'd be stupid to walk away right now. But do I have that same desire to have my own place, have some space, have some peace and quiet? And absolutely. But right now, even when I go visit my mom, I see the people that live in this small town and interact with them. My sanity lasts about 4 to 5 days, and I need to come back.
Yeah.
Like the level of intelligent, intellectual conversation and speed. Like I get upset with how slow everybody drives
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And I'm like, you know what? I it's a weird feeling where I can feel that I'm right on the cusp of like being done with LA, but I'm not quite ready to slow that far down. So it's like,
I felt the exact same
feel
way
it. It's
at
just
34, Justin. I felt the exact same way. And it literally has been
I need
about
to be
5
hustling, I need to be working, I need to be busting my ass and then slow down. I haven't worked hard enough yet.
I sat in front of a wine tasting, like a little house where they sell their wine and they sell, t-shirts and candles and stuff. I sat in front with a little babbling water feature on a Adirondack chair, eating cupcakes and drinking coffee. And I worked for about 3 hours, 2 hours, 2.5 hours yesterday, taking calls, jumping on Zoom meetings. And I'm looking around going,
Yeah.
yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
This is,
But you're
yep.
also going to still work and get the salary that you have. Like that's the
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Again, I didn't have this. I didn't have this pre-COVID.
Yeah.
I didn't have this 3 years ago. Like that I'm in a very different place than I was 5-10 years ago. Things have changed. And at like I said, at 34, 100% grind. Absolutely grind.
Yep.
Find your niche. You do, and I don't know, I know that you might not believe me when I say this. You do have the opportunity right now to go anywhere and establish yourself and find when I say your people, not just like a wife and kids and stuff, but like create a construction business, find an area and carve your niche. You do have that opportunity. I know that it like the right now feels more important, but in all reality, you do have that opportunity. And in 6 years, you probably will look back and be like, oh yeah, I probably could have done that, but I didn't. And you're going to be glad you didn't, because you found something better. I am finding that right now that like, oh man, I totally could have just jumped. And I never did. I felt too scared. I was too safe.
Sure.
But I want to talk more about this California conversation and get more into like the politics of it. But we do have to adjourn because we have opportunity or other engagements today. But I like this topic and I want to revisit it.
Sure. I got a ton still.
Yeah. I look forward to this. Let's thanks everybody for listening.
I mean, I'll see you this weekend as long as we meet up in the stadium somewhere.
Yeah, dude. Did you get my pictures of Ostrich Land?
Yeah, I did.
Allegedly.
Yeah. And that's a healthy one you're next to there.
It would take at least
when it's standing right next to you, you're like, oh, that's a big bird. That's a big bird.
Justin,
Well, they're mean too. They're mean, and you can't outrun it.
I knew that they were tall. Okay.
Yeah,
I knew that they were tall, but what I was not prepared for, because I don't think I'd ever been up
you
and
didn't want to
close.
like poof out on you.
No, not that. Their neck, like, okay, they're big. Their neck, just in perspective, would start about here.
Yeah, honestly,
And
they're velociraptors, man.
they are. You
Yeah,
look at their feet,
legs
the
and
neck on this thing was longer than my arm. Like probably down, it was probably a 4.5 foot neck.
Hmm.
And it freaked me out, man. It was wild. All right. Thanks everybody for listening. I'm Jackson here with Justin. Meet me in the middle. A good Corona to you, sir.
good Corona, you too.
Take care, man.